Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are on this planet. I am Mark Gray. I'm hosting a new show, the first one of the year 2018, not 17. And we're starting off with two guests that I had the pleasure to have the first guest, Lauda Leon, last year from our second show on DTV, on Dimensions TV, and have the honor, the great honor to be hosting tonight Eve Lorgen. Hi, Eve. How are you?
Hi. Good. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you on, and it's a pleasure to have you. And Eve is a dedicated certified clinical hypnotherapist, and she's been a UFO researcher and also a counselor on anomalous trauma. And both of them today are going to talk to us about the new predator concept. What is this new predator about? Who wants to start?
Well, I'll go ahead and open it up, and then Lauda can continue on with her understanding, because it's actually her term that she came out with. Mm-hmm. And I wrote an article recently on my website at evelorgen.com entitled The New Predator, which contains two testimonials of two women who have had experiences that demonstrated what was previously in my book, The Dark Side of Cupid. I had a category of experiencers who've had this Dark Cupid alien love bite kind of experience, where it was a manipulated love relationship where they believed it to be their soulmate or their twin flame, but the relationship demonstrated extreme psychopathic and narcissistic qualities with a supernatural twist, which definitely there was energy vampirism present. Well, and the new predator is much more advanced and lethal in terms of its spiritual infection and predation aspect. And so what I really wanted to do was to not only demonstrate this through two testimonials from their perspective of what this was like, because it's really much more than the classic alien love bite or the love bite. It is much more, and I wanted to be able to demonstrate that this is happening at an alarming rate. It's increasing, as well as the increasing nature of the psychopath phenomena. And it's not just psychopaths, it's something else that Laura Leon has been able to identify in a more of a clairvoyant perspective as well, that it's like as the generations have progressed in, let's say, the alien hybridization project, where there's certain aspects there, they're streamlining a type of predator from a type of genetics that may come from fallen angels, for example. And so the characteristics of the new predator in terms of their abilities, they're able to be much better at predation and manipulation and seduction in a way that is actually even deceiving the elect, if you will, and especially very spiritual, original, spirit essenced people. Although the testimonials are women who have had this experience, and I have more women report this of male predators, although there are female predators and they do exist. It's just that they're not as reported as often by males. And that really is a male-female thing. Like, women will talk more about relationships and maybe more involved in a counseling kind of thing, but it doesn't mean that the female predators are not out there also doing the same kind of thing in their own way as females. So I just wanted to make that be known and to be able to talk more at length on what this is like, and maybe some of newer qualities that we're learning as we go by that are maybe unique and different from the alien love bite, but still demonstrate a lot of those basic characteristics. So if there's anything that you want to say, Laura, that can kind of help add to how we might want to discuss this, and take it from there.
Well, what I have noticed, and I started noticing this when I was really young, like at the age of 9, I started paying attention to what I was seeing in the refining of each generation, was that for the most part, people, the concept of the love bite and the dark side of Cupid, which Evie brought forward, we saw being... they wrote plays about this in ancient Greece. It was like these were themes that were typically known about in mythology with regards to the deities and the demigods having relationships with humans and human hybrids. So we start seeing this love bite and these dark side of Cupid with relationships to these higher beings. But this was usually centered around obsession and love, and a personal bite with regards to feeding themselves and needing that, just like the Greek gods needed worship. It was like that, only on the level of personal feelings, which act as food. But on the whole, there was something else happening that was far more predacious and far more dangerous on hyper and interdimensional levels, which was really a work in progress. And this work in progress, I feel that the Gnostics knew very much so what was going on, and they were basically writing an introduction to the stage of what's really happening here with what is predating us, but they never really were able to complete the whole account. So unfortunately, they were hijacked, and then they were killed before they could finish this. But I really do believe that they were going to be, they would have written about this because they did see it in the making. So what we have been seeing is that this project, in order for this project to work, this goes way beyond. This isn't really even about love per se. This is really about spirituality and the originals. This is about those that are seeking connection with regards to their spiritual gnosis and how they are evolving, how they are branching out, how they are breaking through the shackles. So when this occurs and people are starting to wake up, many seek connections that can help grow and nurture this evolution of the spirit. So this new predator was designed specifically to attack that and to procure its essence. In essence, cannibalize it in order for them to take it over and become it. And in this way, this is a very, very deep and diabolical means by which mimicry is literally taken over, like through osmosis and through the theft of the individual. So what we see is when it's completed, let's say in a situation where the process has completed successfully, the victim then is left without their essence if they don't unhook themselves. So this level of predation goes far beyond any kind of previously understood gnosis about, the theft of or the experiences that until now were really relegated to the affairs of the heart. Because this is really an affair of the spirit. This is about the essence of the being, because it's not relegated to a love connection per se, although that is true. But mostly what you see in new predators is they have an array, like an absolute collection of people. And you can see this in cults. You can see this in individual predators who basically travel all around and collect victims under the guise of some spiritual movement. So it isn't just relegated to an experience which would be under the love section, although the victims experience a one-to-one connection to the predator, to the new predator, which would feel very much like a confusion between the spirit and the heart. So
you can come across those predators in the politics field and UFO fields as well,
very much
and
so.
ufology. I've come across those for the past few months and years, and they are all over basically. So they track their targets by actually repeating what seems to be the truth that talks to them inside of them, just like those. Some of those secret space program informants and others,
Well, and they're you know, I mean, we can look at what and how this refining has taken place over the generations to create them, because now we see a surplus happening. We see almost like a viral situation where these people, these beings, are now all over, unlike anything before. So, you know, we can discuss how the refining took place and what was needed and what was needed to create them. So you've got a being essentially that takes and absorbs and cannibalizes and eats your essence, consumes your consciousness, and leaves you without it. But by virtue of doing that, they can tap into everything that you're connected to. So they can tap into your past, they can tap into your past lives, they can tap into your gnosis and retrieve pearls of truth from the great sea of the multiverse. But you, as the victim, wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it was coming from you. You would just be amazed and enthralled. You would be smitten by somebody who you feel has the same spiritual connection to everything. And so this is part of the lure of the spirit, because it is just a projection of you to you, but you are not aware of it. So you actually fall for the belief that this person has the same path and the same spiritual desire for truth and ability to procure an essence out of the multiverse, which is a very rare thing. So it's very diabolical, because before you know it, you are deeply inside and imprisoned within the system that uses an infinity mirror system and projection of yourself while your essence is being removed.
Right. And you find them also a lot more now in the alternative truth movements and
Yes.
And circles. They're all over. They're like copycats.
Now more than ever.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's something we wanted to discuss, because this this has been a specific target for the truth movements, because they could see that there would be this time when many people would be awakening more so. So this project, which was, you know, a project that was in the making for many years, and they had to refine it through generations of tweaking hybridization, in order to produce the product, the final product. They knew that it was going to be needed for this time to counter the level of awakening happening, and to counter that people's own gnosis was going to be expanding at a very accelerated rate. So what we have is a very purposeful attack on that. And this is why we see these, quote, masquerading mimicry new predators like all over the truth movement, which Evie and I want to discuss more so about.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the counterfeit spirit and how they operate. Even what from the ancient Gnostics knew about how they, you know, infect, corrupt, pervert, copy, and then, of course, hijack. And
Yes.
so this is what has happened in religions and many other movements where, let's say, there was an original essence of truth, essence, beingness, which this infector, which is a copier, tries to mimic and corrupt and pervert according to its own program of counterfeit spirit. And so this is happening on many levels, not only with the new predator, but what's happening you know, in religion or in politics or in the alternative media. You'll have these copycat things come out. So perhaps what we need to do is really define again what is gnosis, and what was the ancient understanding of what that meant according to, let's say, the ancient Gnostics that has been described in the Nag Hammadi and some of these ancient traditions. And as far as I understand, gnosis would be like, for example, in some of the early teachings of Jesus talking to his disciples about how they recognize him. How they recognize what he is because we are of that same essence, and it is a kind of recognition of oneness, of connectedness, because we are the same essence of the original spirit. And that was a kind of gnosis, is that when you have that realization that I and thou are one, and you are connected to the all and that creative original spirit, that was a kind of gnosis. It's not just external knowledge of concepts and things. It is actually the realization that you and whatever are one, because you are of the same essence. You are of the same essence. We're all connected. So it's a kind of recognition of your own beingness. And so when you take that as what is real, the original essence, what is real, what is original, and then we be able to identify, okay, so that is gnosis. So what is not gnosis? And what is the counterfeit? And so why does the counterfeit try to copy it, and how does that take place, and how we can recognize it to actually protect and defend that original divine essence so that it doesn't become corrupted, perverted, and copied out, and how things are happening in the world today. So, and it's definitely happening in the alt media, as we notice on Facebook, for example, is a perfect example of a copycatted, perverted, corrupted, falsified system of society and identification and beingness. Is actually a corruption, perversion, and copycat. It's as if, let's say if there was an original tree where the roots from the original spirit came from the trunk and they went out into the branches, and then there was a grafted hybrid branch being grown on the tree, and all that which originated from the grafted hybrid branch would be what the Facebook reality of social reality is. It's the grafted falsehood on the foundation of the counterfeit spirit. So we're seeing that, and then people are normalizing the counterfeit spirit as what is real, and it is not real. Yeah. You see? So we have to identify what is real and what is not to be able to take back the original essence, so that, because that's the only thing that has life. You see?
And so the original essence versus that which is the counterfeit spirit, we are talking about two distinct types of beings, essentially. The counterfeit also typically has symptomologies which they won't tell you about because they're too busy mimicking, they're too busy being imposters, they're too busy procuring the original source from that which is original, and then reflecting it back to you and reflecting it back to the world, projecting it once they have it. But within them is an emptiness that can't be filled.
Going back to Facebook, did you hear about the latest news regarding Zuckerberg? He's confirming that Facebook is working on mind reading technology. Like telepathic texting is going to be possible soon on Facebook. So they're going to be able to read your mind under the pretense that it will help you type in texting on Facebook.
So I think it's already happening. Actually, it's already happening.
Do you know what's interesting about Zuckerberg? I was just watching something that he was. It was on a video, I think, that Freeman Fly has on his website, and it was fascinating because, Mark, this reminds me of what you're saying, because he was caught saying, "When I was human."
Wow. He said that.
Yes, he actually said it. It's like on film, and he caught himself, and he was like, well, I mean, I still am human. But he said, when I was human. So see, whatever's been taken over in him is now producing the counterfeit systems. That's why it wants to produce the counterfeit telepathy, the counterfeit psychic, because this is what it does.
And that's the whole AI thing.
Yes.
In terms of, remember how you're talking about how throughout history and the long-term planners of the corrupt demiurgic creations, there's a long-term planning and streamlining of its ultimate stronghold here on planet Earth to implement its program, which is a very, very long-term planning, but very ancient. And so the AI, for example, is taking place within the technology and the computers and the social media and all the technologies associated with the 5D, the cell phone technology and the brainwave similarities with cell phones and brainwaves, and the telepathy and the artificial telepathy, which is actually a hijacking system of consciousness that will override the naturalness of our spiritual awareness, which is essentially non-dual, eternal, and infinite and unnameable, and mostly heart-centered. So we're having a hijacking of this so that we will no longer, those who have been fully entrained in these systems of technology and consciousness will no longer be able to identify and connect in that naturalness, which is associated with spirit and empathy and compassion and love and non-duality and all those things that we know that which is real, as opposed to that which is counterfeit but mimicking. So this is with the danger in a lot of these technologies as well.
Well, because we're in a counterfeit reality system. So if we're in a counterfeit reality system, we're in the counterfeit. So the originals are in the counterfeit system. And what's happening is throughout the evolution of time, whatever time has been here in this last cycle, the machine has been producing and needing to produce the same counterfeit in the biological beings.
Yes,
so,
which brings me back to a quote by Charles Baudelaire, who was a philosopher, a French philosopher, and that was a quote that was also used in the movie The Usual Suspects. And basically, the quote goes like this: "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. The world he was living in didn't exist." So basically, they need more trickery, more counterfeit to be able to hide from the general viewing. That's basically it. AI plus satanic rituals, sexual magic, and love bite relationships all mixed together. To hide deeper and deeper into the minds of the people. So,
well, and I don't want this sense that, and this is where we have to be careful, because I don't want a lot of people trying to figure out if like they know one, or if they're going to judge one, or if this can become a very dangerous environment when we're coming out with this information, because we have to keep it in context. The new predator will have literally an entire lifetime, a series of proofs of this, just because it isn't just a one-off. It isn't just a situation where you're discussing about somebody that suffers from a personality disorder and they feel an emptiness and blah blah blah. This is different. The new predator essentially is a very, very refined technology that has been created through the biology hybridization programs, and computer programs. It's much like, to pass it off as something of a normal experience, to pass it off as just a bad, experience that will make you, the victim, a double victim. Because what they do is they invert reality. And when they invert reality, they make you the culprit. It brings in the malignant narcissist, it brings in psychopathy, it brings in all the aspects of PDs, essentially, only it's an absolute spiritual soul harvesting.
Harvesting, I mean, that's it in a nutshell, that's the danger. And
yeah.
How the predation, I mean, this so quote reptilian, even though it's beyond reptilian, but it's how I've seen many, many times over that the predator, once you, let's say, call them on their behaviors of psychopathy or whatever they're doing, then they turn around and blame you for being stupid, for being a victim, as if that they're blameless and that it's all your fault. So they continue to blame the victim and then keep spinning it. And then they'll do things like insert the spiritual gurus, even with this testimonial that I have on my website, where the person, actually, he was projecting upon her that the reason why she's having such a hard time and she's calling him on his stuff, that, is because she's not spiritually evolved enough. And she just needs to love more and forgive more and open herself up and offer her will over to this being in order to become more spiritually evolved. And so there's many hijacked spiritual systems and spirituality systems that will make it easier for these predators to infect religions and take the best of the best because of our heart of forgiveness and giving. So that's like another danger there.
Well,
it's unfortunate.
It's a horrible danger, because the inversion we're speaking about is like, it's so extreme that you wouldn't even believe it's possible unless you found yourself in it. Not only is the inversion, the new predator is taking what is within them and putting it onto you, but they're literally inverting your sense of everything that you perceive, so that by the time they're finished with you, you are genuinely thinking that the problem is yours, that they're connecting what they are with your core wounds, and they're able to procure actual core wound experiences from all of your lives. And then they project that back onto you with their own that they put on you. So this way, what happens is they take your essence and they're able to become that, in the sense that they are now reflecting and being and acting like they are you. And this is, they take your personality, they take your characteristics, they take everything that you are, and they just become it. And then you're left with the vestiges of what they are, in essence, through projection.
But they can hack into our multiple lives in this matrix system. And what about other dimensions? They can only hack into this one here?
No, they're able to hack into many dimensions through you. So if you're the original being, you have access to everything. And when you have access to everything, see, they know this is they piggyback on you. And they're able to just go and delve deep into the mysteries of what you're connected with. And then suddenly they're talking about it. Yeah. And suddenly they know about it. And they take it over.
This reminds me of something that I wanted to bring out, but I don't mean to interrupt it. It has to do with the agreements of entrapment that happen sometimes on other levels and other dimensions, which the predator is able to do through your agreement in some of these spiritual things. They maybe have spiritual practices that you do, or vows, or some ritual or something. And then what happens is that you're actually giving agreement for them to interact and to have control and affect you on other levels and dimensions, which means they can infect and manipulate and coerce on other levels and dimensions, which has another route of entry into your reality that is basically keeping you like a puppet on the string. And you don't even realize that you've given over these agreements of entrapment, and how they've been so good at being able to manipulate and procure these agreements, and then working on other levels and dimensions to affect you. So a lot of these predators actually have known you on other lifetimes. They're able to tap in. Like, a lot of them will say, oh, well, we were together in ancient Egypt and you were a priestess and I was a this. And then they'll maybe throw in a guilt trip because you did something bad in the last life. Therefore, you're paying for it this time. And they're throwing on more guilt to just, get you in that guilt and shame thing, which is a whole feeding operation. But it's a really amazing, maybe that's something we can bring up at some point, like how we've been able to identify subtle agreements of entrapment that they've been able to put in our lives and in our dreamscape and our astral dreamscape and in religions that are actually allowing us to give our own permission away for them to predate and infect and corrupt and pervert and what they do. So,
well, and also, with reference to what Evie's saying, these new predators will go into your various levels of astral realms and your dream state, and they will procure agreement that way as well, and also have sex with you while they're at it. So, this is, but then there's another personality, because of the way that they're created, the way that they have been refined, is that they ensure that they have a multiple personality disorder, so that you see the victim of a child. You see the child essence in the new predator when they know that they're being caught. So when you start catching on they can grab that personality, they can grab that altar, and suddenly you are feeling bad for them because they have this innocence and this like, I was like completely tormented when I was a child, this little boy who's lost. They will like show this part to you again, right? So that they can ensnare you in guilt and shame. And also in your nurturing, you will want to go and help them.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
it's very elaborate.
Yeah.
And so you see the monster, you see the absolute demonic personality, and you see the, oh my God, the innocent little child. And then you see the sex crazed person that's going to inject you with, something to keep you there. But then he's or she is emotionally destroying you as they're taking your essence. So there's a lot that goes on with this, but through it all, you will constantly be enthralled by their level of perception with regards to the pearls that they reveal spiritually that ties in the gamut of your knowledge, that ties you to everything that you're experiencing on those spiritual levels. So it's extreme all the way around.
It's all inverted, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just amazed. I mean, I'm still overwhelmed, amazed at how well they work with the guilt and shame manipulations of claiming that you really need to learn this lesson and you're really not spiritually evolved and you should be more loving and forgiving, and to allow the predator and the pedophile more entrance in your life and your kids. And it's amazing how they operate, like in the testimonial, the second one on my website, where the person was the predator was actually some kind of sorcerer, obviously a well-advanced sorcerer, but he would predate on many different forums online, including, let's say, getting children involved with art and to access the children and the teenagers, because that pedophile programming part of them is already a large part of the predation process. And how they would be like a musician on the streets getting donations in order to connect in on that level. And then so they would be all these multiple identities on all those different forums to get as many predate upon as many types of people as possible. And there was another one that was revealed to me recently, privately, of course, and it was somebody who had a love bite situation where upon an initial connection with them, which was only a chat on Skype kind of thing, and then within a short period of time, this predator was astrally invading their dreamscape and raping them, doing the usual thing, and like they never let go. They like stay in your dreamscape. And then how finally this predator, because they're a lot like serial killers, how they have to like leave their mark and leave their calling card because they have that ego that needs to get the attention, And so this predator basically admitted to, after time, that losing my train. He was acting as if he would go on these dating sites and different forums and then pretend to impersonate a woman to attract males who had this romantic attraction to a female, and then do these astral connections with males targeting males, pretending to be females, and just to do this love bite dynamic of a love spell, but it was all a sorcery of a predation and energy consumption. So it was actually this sorcerer who was already taken over by demon and had the Jekyll Hyde thing going on, actually admitted to how he was predating upon people and predating upon men, which was really interesting. Yeah. So this was an act of sorcery and black magic. Yeah.
And not to mention the when they are punishing to you, they'll tell you, this is for your own spiritual evolution. This is for your own good. I have to be this way for your benefit, so you can learn. That's only one aspect too, right?
That's what politicians do on the mass level, mass scale level. With countries. So you have to suffer and earn your right to live because it's for your own good. So So that's basically. But you, Eve, you mentioned something about Egypt and past lives and how they pretend to have connected in past lives. Egypt comes back a lot. I have many testimonies on my end too. I met my twin flame, and we had a life in Egypt together, and so forth. It's all linked to Freemasonry as well, because the Masonic rituals are all based upon Egyptian rituals. 99 degrees in the Egyptian rites. So it's all linked to sex magic, and sorcery and Freemasonry. What do you think?
And not that they actually were there, but they can just, they can just jump on your back and know that you had a life there, and they can just procure the information and then take that over, because they're mimickers, they're counterfeiters, they're masquerading using like the real things, so they can just do it and take it and show it to you so that you think it's true, and then before you know it, you're like, oh well, I really have had past lives with this person, but you haven't.
It's sort of like psychics who take advantage of, or consciously or unconsciously, it depends if they really after the money or trying to help people or in grief and stuff, and that lost a dear one, and family member, and they tap into the entity on the other side who just pulled out a drawer and gets all the files on the persons that's dead. And of course it's accurate because they get the files. It's an information residue.
Yeah.
And they are master at the artificial version of being psychic and telepathic and empathic. So they're the technological version, the AI version of that. Oh, so they yeah.
So we were talking about the posture that the new predator was using to invert the situation and make the other the actual victim look like the predator itself, himself, herself, or
yes.
What can you tell us about that?
Or they just make you look crazy, and they accuse you of being paranoid and crazy, and that's what they do to deny what they're doing.
Right, and they set you up so that they provoke you, see, and then you react in response to the provocation, so that they can put all what they're doing onto you through provocation. You're just reacting and responding to the injustice of it. You're like completely within your right to be in defense, and you attack back because something's really wrong, but but you look like now that you're the one that is the predator. You look like that you're the one that has the problem. AI.
It reminds me.
AI.
AI. It reminds me of the old TV series, The Invaders, with Roy Thinnis that played, David Vincent. Remember that, with the aliens that were disappearing when they got shot and so forth. I interviewed Roy Thinnis actually from the old Invaders TV series, and he was the only one that got proof. Actually ran into those aliens, and everyone else around him said, you're paranoid, they don't exist, and everything. I don't know if you remember that. That's a cult series. You remember that one?
I don't remember that.
David Vincent was the name of the hero of the series for 2 seasons in 66 and 67, I think. But it came on TV many times after. Since.
Oh, yeah, that's too old. I don't think I would have.
Yeah, but it's been on TV. Since then, many times over.
Yeah, I'd have to Google that. It sounds good though.
But the amazing thing is that it's exactly what the predator does, and it looks like we're surrounded with a bunch of predators and organic robots or organic portals. There are Agent Smiths of the Matrix, and that are there to make you look paranoid, like, oh no, all this is BS. You're the only one who sees it. So that's basically it. That's the poster they're taking.
And you're the only one that sees what's going on too, because while you're in the world of the new predator, you're literally trapped inside the inversion, and nobody else sees it. Everybody else sees the mirage. Everybody else sees the mask that the new predator puts out, and the new predator basically stalks people around them, him, her, to make them, it's almost like they want to seduce those that are around them. So they keep them in the seduction phase. So they keep those around them. And this is key, in the seduction phase, so that they can't see, so that they're blinded. And then, of course, the victims are trapped inside the actual world of inversion, and they look crazy. So they look crazy to those that are being seduced around the new predator, because you're the one that, you know, is acting and behaving all crazy.
Reminds me of a guy who was sent to the psychiatric hospital after he hacked onto an anchorman on TV live in, I think it was in the 80s or something, with a fake BB gun, you know, and he said, I have to, you know, you have to read this to the people. And he actually wrote something. He was part of I don't know, high society in Hollywood or something. I don't know. And he said everybody around him was clones and stuff. And they put him away. I forgot his name, but it was in black and white. It was in the 80s.
Well, and a part of this also, not only does the new predator keep those around them in the state of seduction continually, but once the state of seduction is solidified, they actually start utilizing those around them as types of sentinels or as types of guardians, so that they're protecting the new predator.
Well, yeah, they see this in the harem cult thing. Well, actually, one of my people who gave me a testimonial was in a cult group with mostly other women who had this shamanic ability that related to the women's wisdom, the womb wisdom and whatever. But those women were still caught under the spell of being connected to the predator and then protecting the predator and promoting him, whereas the predator was the root of all of their stuff, but they were presenting themselves to the world as some women's group. And this happens with a lot of the predators who, let's say, hijack the Gaia and the Mary Magdalene and the tantric this and that, and then really there's like this predator underneath all these women who have been caught up in the spell of being tantrically connected to these predators, and then protecting them and promoting them in these cult harem groups. And it's too bad, because a lot of they're getting their power from the female energy.
Totally, you know? and that really is at the root of what this is about. The female energy is a natural portal to the multiverse. So what better? Like this is the creme de la creme. And then it's not just women, but it's original women, right? Original spirit. So this is just absolutely methodically very much a targeting and a scouting. So they actually will scout, and they will look, and they know exactly who to target when they see it.
And
they know exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, to take it another trajectory, in people who have discussed with me love bite situations and some of their lives being born in a bloodline type of family because they are an original that has qualities that these darker ones would want to hijack and corrupt and take for themselves so that we can create for them. And they will do this with, let's say, high-level people or men in high-level businesses like NASA or aerospace or government. It could be anything. And then they will target through a love bite a woman who has the original essence, and then marry them. And so that essence is used to actually help the man create even inventions in these companies that are, you know, multinational corporations. And then they use the women's creative spirit to promote themselves and their businesses. But it's all this hijacking and engineering through these original essence women that actually create for these scientists.
I dream of Jeannie.
Perfect programming example to normalize this thing and the secret space program and everything. Yeah,
exactly. And so meanwhile, I dream of Jeannie. Jeannie's just a housewife who just appears really dumb. And she's, you know, the sex slave, the housewife, that she doesn't really have any outwardly important function, but she's being utilized for her psychic abilities and her metaphysical abilities. And because of that, her husband, who's a Secret Service agent working for the secret government, she's actually the one that has everything to do with what they're creating. So they're utilizing her, but they must keep her in the dark so that she doesn't know that she is actually the one that's being utilized in all these projects that the husband works for with the government.
Yeah, she's stuck in the bottle, you know, until
Right.
then when they want her, and then she's used to be the creative energy of all these big corporations, and like, you know, NASA and I Dream of Gina and these other, Lockheed, could be any other. But, you know, when you find out, like through interviewing so many abductees in my labs and finding out what bloodline families they're from and how they're involved with a lot of the military industrial complex and those associations, then it's kind of a red flag to identify how they're even operating and getting their power from the originals to power the counterfeit operation. So we need to take back our power and basically say no and stop feeding the predator, but we have to recognize this and learn how to not give in our agreements of entrapment through the mind control programming or whatever it is. So.
Yes, and the other area of the new predator is that they don't know. There isn't an awareness within themselves because they've been created to be what they are. Within themselves, there's no identity and there's no personality. That can only come from those that they are gluing themselves to. That is the characteristics that they procure, and the essence that they procure from the victim is and becomes their personality. It becomes their blueprint. But they within themselves are lost. They don't have anything. There's no and there's no safe feeling within themselves because there's nothing that they can navigate through. There's no personality. There's no identity. It's
This is like
it's like a blank slate.
It's like the mask of the narcissist, except really we're talking about a much more lethal aspect with the new predator. It's much more lethal than just a simple narcissistic personality disorder, which is why we even wanted to bring this up, because there's a lot of people out there now with the narcissistic abuse and recovery, which is actually very helpful for people who have been abused in that fashion, but it is not the same. And to actually bring up another subject which is related, and it's related to the counterfeit spirit and how it mimics and copies and hijacks and perverts the counterfeit foundation, is what we see in the alt media of how people will target originals, and let's say on their Facebook page, and then they will maybe make comments, and then they'll send links to actually promote another person who's, let's say, a therapist or an author or a guru or somebody that has a hijacked version of maybe what the original is promoting, and then they're trying to do it to promote themselves and their businesses as the hijacked copy of whatever the original was. And so there's a lot of piracy going on in many different ways, but especially on these social media groups now.
And hijacking,
Yeah,
and also
and when they do this, they try to come off like they're the ones that are the original.
yes, and they divert and invert their findings also and research, so that and make it look like they'll make it look like it doesn't exist or it never happened or forget it.
Oh yeah.
And, it's just nonsense.
And this goes on in Hollywood as well, with the spin-controlled version of, let's say, the alien abduction phenomena, or with the Taken series, or with the Love Bite, or with many things. It's always a little bit of mimic, and then it just kind of twists and perverts to direct your attention to another belief system, which is really not exactly what the truth is of the original. And that's why we have to be so careful in how we present ourselves, so that we can always stay back on track to recalibrate to the original spirit and that which is real, and really be firm about that,
Yeah, there's two different kinds of predation. One of the ones that you speak of, Mark, which is like a setup where they want to entice you, and then you're ensnared in their enticement, and then they can they can basically invert everything you say and deny it and make it like you're setting yourself up. So it's all like a really deep form of manipulation. Then there's another form that is going on where there's a lot of people who are thievers and they're archontic mimickers who are also the predators, and they take from the original and they invert it, but try to make it as though it comes from them. And they just expand it and, you know, through thievery, add whatever to it from the other original until they just have created something that is like, that they're trying to claim is theirs.
And it creates
so we're seeing
confusion. Yeah, it creates confusion of discernment of what the original ever was, and it's how they dirty and muddy the waters so that we have a hard time discerning, so that they can befool the public about what is truth, what is really the truth of what's going on.
And
so
for
this
this,
and they
discernment is
usually,
so important.
yeah, and they usually tell you don't value friendship if you don't if you stop continuing with what I'm doing, or relationship, or cooperation, and or or group work, and you don't value friendship.
or they'll butter you up,
Mm.
or they'll butter you up and try to, through their charisma, enchant you to get the information, or to just
So the new
attach
predator,
a connection. So,
the new predator seems to adjust or calibrate or modify its behavior or strategy according to the level of consciousness that's rising up. But if it is like in the movie The Adjustment Bureau, like if they control and can modify our linear timeline, how can we stop them from going back to whatever lives that we had, and tap into that? And if they're actually tapped into, if linear time doesn't exist and it's all an illusion that they tap into, how can we decipher, point them out and get rid of them in this timeline? It's not an easy question, I have to admit, but what do you think?
well, I think this is where boundaries, first of all, you have to be able to know what to recognize, because they're very stealth. And they've already studied you. They've already created a type of attack by studying you, so that they know what your proclivities are, they know your weaknesses, they know your strengths, they know how to seduce you and what you want. So they access you through your own core wounds, or maybe what you are projecting in desire. And then, so essentially you have to arm yourself with the right information to be able to even see this coming at you, and create boundaries of protection and safeguards of proving, making them prove. So you could create tests, to and things that are unpredictable. So you don't give yourself away, you don't give your energy away, you make sure that you just keep it to yourself until you can prove what really is the dynamic. Because see, when you do tests on these people, when you trick them, I guess you could say, and create boundaries of protection around you, you'll start seeing that their great facade will start glitching, and you'll start seeing for yourself these dysregulations that they have, many of them have emotional dysregulation disorders, because if they can't get from you what they want, then they can't get regulated. So it's very, that is by virtue how they regulate themselves, is by attaching themselves to what you are and taking from you. And if you're normal, they're normal. If you start exhibiting your own upset or criticisms, they fly off. And when you're intimately connected to them, let's say, this is where it goes beyond the seduction phase, and it goes into the punishing phase, and it goes into the abuse of your core wounds, of the inverted aspects of themselves, but they put it onto you, because this is when they start lacking the feeding that they need. So in order for you to be able to stop even any kind of a connection, you need to have the right ability to discern signs for what this is.
And discernment goes back to the recognition of what we are, which means self-knowledge of understanding our own selves and our own wounds and who we are. So this kind of go back to the simple and like the golden rule as well, is like we want to do our recovery work and our self-knowledge work, and it takes time for true understanding to take place. And it's not just a quick fix where somebody links you up to a radionic gizmo and all of a sudden all your attachments and entities and implants are gone. And it really is a long-term way of life and being, of connecting in with the recognition of the true essence of being that we are on a much deeper inner spiritual level. And so when we can do and be that, then we have an easier time being able to discern what is not of that and what is not operating on that frequency, so to speak. And it's hard because our whole life, what is normalized is that which is false, or a lot of the counterfeit spirit is which is normalized. So when we do recognize a true essence of being, we may be accused of being something that we are not. In the world of most people who are not aware, right? They accuse you of being a blasphemer or something, you know?
Heretic.
So
Here's another thing. If someone is reflecting to you everything that you want and everything you desire, and is giving you like the whole spiritual gamut of like what you've been looking for, that is a huge red flag, because this is how they operate at the beginning. They study you, they know what you want, they know what you need, they know what your weakness is. They go in and they reflect to you everything that you possibly could ever desire. And then there's like an obsessiveness attached to it, because it's very important to keep you literally inside the grip of that seduction, because they don't want you starting to see, right? So in order for that to happen, they need to really enthrall you in their seduction. So they have to keep really, really reflecting back to you and projecting that totality of what you've been looking for, of that. And for those that are truth seekers, it's all about truth. It's all about like love, connecting to truth, connecting to the desire for more truth, and maybe even the journey of being able to do that with somebody else who is reflective of everything you are. Whoa, red flag.
So is it a numbers game or not? Because what's the ratio of regular, true, real humans like ourselves around us, and the amount of clones or organic portals or predators that are running the show here? So
that's a really good question. And actually, it goes back to some of the Gnostic tractates, which, they consider it speculation. They call it Gnostic speculation, but there is basically what I call it the thirds, the third pneuma, which is the pure spiritual essence that recognizes its origin, and then the psychic, which is the mixture between pneuma and clay. And then clay people are those without the original essence of spirit. They're like the copy without the true spirit essence. They may have like I think the Gnostics described the essence would be like the flickering flame would be those of the not the true, and those who are the pneuma of the original essence is like an infinite light that emanates from itself, because that's what it is. It is an infinite light kind of essence, whereas the other was like a flickering flame. And then the clay is the clay. So we talk about those who are truly aware and really exemplifying those characteristics of the original. We would be lucky if it was even 1/3, but in all likelihood it is less than 1/3. So you're talking about, well, what is the majority rule here? And so what is the bell curve? And so what happens in society is when you have a majority that believes something or promotes something, or what's the majority and what is the bell curve, it's going to be not the pneuma, not the original, because the original is, I think, a smaller percentage, but the others are either not awakened yet, or they come from a different root. And that even the Gnostics said that at the end of the consummation of the works of the age, all will be returned to its root. So what do we truly recognize, and what do we realize of what we are? And it's about a realization, but sometimes that takes time to wake up. And so there are forces that are trying to act to prevent us from waking up to our true essence. So there may be more than is exemplified right now, but I think it's a minority, and it is certainly not the majority rule.
Well, I can testify that in terms of what I've been shown. I mean, I haven't read anything like this, but what I was shown when I was young, when I was little, was that we're looking at 30%, 15% of which are very deeply asleep and may not rouse. So that leaves 15% who are, functionally aware. And I'm not even going to say awake, because I don't really believe anyone's awake. If there's somebody awake, they haven't made themselves known, and that's probably on purpose, because if you are awake, you probably wouldn't really want to. You would stay in hiding. But, so let's just say 15% are actually fighting to be aware, and perhaps 15% are just waiting to be nudged with a certain frequency so that they can come out of the spell. And then there's the remaining of whatever that was in existence, which is, you start talking about the serpent seeds, the dragon seeds, the various types of beings, the backdrops, the synthetics, the replicants, the artificials, those that make the simulation real, those that create the interface in order for you to be able to feel like everything here is real.
That reminds me of something that one of my client had recognized as part of the gang stalking and targeted individual phenomena, which is very widespread. And it happens to many who are, let's say, waking up, or they're from certain bloodlines where they have a certain kinds of histories. It could be satanic ritual abuse history, but it could not be. It could be just someone who's waking up, and they are become surrounded by these gang stalking theater type of operations where it's like it appears to be real humans doing things in such a way as to cause them to doubt themselves and to feel bad and not be able to get a job and be constantly harassed and reacting to this psychopathic gaslighting behavior. But I think she actually noticed that some of them seemed robotic, as if they're actually not real. It's almost as if they're a holographic thing being projected in our reality for the purpose of targeting, but it's like they're not even real. There's something like really weird going on with some of the gang stalking theater, because some of them, they're like insertions of a program.
Remote controlled.
Yeah. And that actually reminds me of another thing that we could bring up at some point, which ties into the interdimensional and hyperdimensional ownership. All people who are spirited, and possibly those who are not, they're programs or whatever, I hate to say that, but they are under ownership, spiritual ownership, like what the Bible says. I mean, in some of the biblical things, up to the 7th generation, there are those who are under ownership of these serpent seed interdimensional beings, or the principalities, or whatever they want to call them. And so apparently all spirited beings, especially those who are not aware and have not regained their realization of sovereignty of the original essence, they are under an ownership by different kinds of beings, which lay ownership over many different races or bloodlines. And they actually help create the scripts of the karma and the lives that they will play out according to their script of what they're telling you is your karma even. So I actually had someone report a realization, a full clairvoyant perception in 3D reality of being able to perceive in a regular daily interaction of 2 individuals that were in front of him. There was a group, and where he was able to perceive this clearly as the script that was playing out of the past, present, and future of the current life, including some other incarnations, and the beings that were laying ownership over them. There was actually a cluster of like 5 hyperdimensional beings that were claiming ownership and letting it be known to him, who was observing, that this person's under ownership and this person was under ownership, and that they were actually even competing with one another over even the baby that was going to be born of this particular person. Long story short, there was another being who was actually an archon in charge of these other clusters of being who laid ownership. So they were basically competing for territoriality of the original spirited people. But there are some who apparently didn't have this. It was if they were blank. And so I'm just questioning, why are some people blank and why are others under ownership? And what kind of ownership are we under if we are? We need to know that. So
Yeah, by principality.
Yeah.
By
Or-
demonic principality, by these forces that are in operation here, who have always been under some form of predation.
I know that's
Humanity
why.
has been.
That's why, yeah, it's a big farm. We're being farmed, and our energy is being farmed. Our genetics is being farmed. Our consciousness is being farmed. So, isn't that why ufology is so much under attack and trolled and hacked into, and well, especially here in France, but I suppose in the U.S. as well. It's part of the government-sponsored intel. A limited disclosure, and next thing you know, it's a disclosure that goes. Psh, it doesn't happen. It's just about UFOs and lights in the sky, and there's no more programs since 2012, and the Pentagon is not interested in anymore in that, and it just goes around in circle and repeats over and over each year. It's like, oh, that's going to be a big UFO disclosure, and it's just a game. Like, isn't it like a real population testing game, like in real time, to see how they react? They would react.
I would say so. Yeah, I think most of these things are. I think it's a lot of psychological grooming that is taking place. Just like the I mean, if you think about it, disclosure has been happening from the beginning. They were painting UFOs in medieval art, for God's sake. Michelangelo, it's all over the place. It's very evident throughout history. Even 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, the, quote, gods were walking amongst us. We come complete with all of this already here. So, this kind of takeover of the Dark Ages to make you think that there's no disclosure or hasn't been any, and to make you believe now that you're being groomed for it. It's just, they're toying with you. It's disclosure. It's already everywhere.
So it's a big psyop.
What's to disclose? Everything's a psyop. Everything is grooming your mind so that you can perceive something, and they're like, have an agenda that they're operating under, which they've already known that they're going to do. So it's just corralling the farm. They're corralling everybody.
So they keep the sheeps in the farm entertained in thinking that there might be farmers out there, but we don't know which ones. So they keep invisible. They remain invisible forever that way. That's pretty much it. That's when people tell me ufology, just deal with ufology. Don't talk about anything else. Nothing is interconnected. Magic, rituals, Masons, secret societies, and the hierarchy, the political hierarchy, and so forth, and the military-industrial complex. Nothing is connected to ufology. It's like ufology would be all by itself and not connected to other power, tower control towers out there in society. Of course, it is. That's why they put so much effort into non-disclosure of the connections of ufology with everything else in the pyramid of power.
Yeah. Yes.
And,
very good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They make it so that we don't understand the various connections to be made. For example, I've seen this in the whole alien abduction phenomena and the UFO contact and experiencers and whatever you want to call it, but they're downplaying and spin controlling so that we do not see the true connections between things, such as mind control and MK Ultra, which is an obvious, but there are other connections which could help us understand the true nature of what we're dealing with. But there is spin control to shut down those windows of perception so we do not perceive clearly what is and what the true connections are. So that's what annoys me with so many, TV shows. A lot of times they do it on such a limited way to only perceive one aspect so that our understanding of it is distorted, unfortunately.
Yeah, very good point. And this is how they obscure the mind of humanity, because they're telling you how to think and perceive so that you actually miss the point.
This actually reminds me of another thing to bring up, which has to do with a typical agreement of entrapment that is done in a deceptive way through basically they tell you how to perceive For example, in a multiple choice exam where the answer exists in a multiple choice, but what they're actually doing is they're only giving you the choices that they're choosing for you to be the right answer of perception of what is whatever the answer is, when in reality it doesn't have to be any of those multiple choices, because by those multiple choices you're giving in your agreement of entrapment to choose the reality they're choosing for you. So we should always choose what purely we perceive that is independent of their multiple choices that they're giving you of what reality is. And so a lot of people will try to entrap you into making a statement that incriminates yourself. And we see this with some deceptive interviewers, which we have discussed. I don't know if it was on the air, of, let's say, well-known researchers who are being interviewed by people who are actually agents that are being used as provocateurs to entrap people for their own self-recriminations, to basically make them discount their own work or be it something other than what it is.
Very good point.
Yeah, it happens a
So
lot. Actually, more and more. I've experienced that on national French TV, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yes. So. Is it this or is it that? You have to give an answer. Is it this or is it that? And then they don't give you the opportunity to say what it really is, because they're giving you a limited choice of bullshit. You know?
Exactly.
And that's by which your career is going to be based on. That's what they're giving you to go out into the world with.
Yes, the multiple choice.
Entrapment in interviews by people like, we didn't say malanga, but it's how these provocateurs come and force you into self-incrimination, basically. And that's what happens all the time with truth tellers. And if there's something valuable what they're saying, then they get entrapped by a provocateur to incriminate themselves into a false, perception of what they're even promoting or what they're saying. And I don't know what you call that psychologically, that tactic, but it's because you two polarities. You are either this, or either that, and they do that in interrogations as well. When they do interrogations of people, trying to incriminate them or to self-incriminate.
Yes, and there's also the bad cop and good cop strategy.
Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, good cop, bad cop.
In fact, the aliens have been, doing that. That's something Barbara Bartholick had brought out, and how many of these alien love bite and the good alien, bad aliens types of scenarios going on. And it was a good cop, bad cop kind of situation. So, yeah, we have to identify what that is and why they're doing it. That's taking place.
So the new Predator is telling you basically what politicians do to their voters or potential voters. They're saying, or they're mimicking what you want to hear, and they're going to say it, or what you want to feel. They're going to make you feel it, basically. That's how they
yeah, that's one aspect. I think that if you look throughout history and you see this hyper and interdimensional project going in levels to perfect it, I think it was all going towards this final end to create ultimate predators at this juncture because of the dismantling. So really, something needed to be brought through and perfected in order to counter the huge event horizon, the convergence of the event horizon that's happening with the dismantling of everything, because this is where everything is going to be torn down. Therefore, if you think about it, the predator needed to be able to create the ultimate predator, the new predator, for this specific time, and the awakening prior to the dismantling, also as a way to find another means by which they could steal a person's identity and therefore avoid, their ultimate end.
Well, it kind of goes into the whole parasite thing, how they parasite in us to live through us, because they really do not have a true connection to the infinite spirit. And that's actually something that was the original work of Dr. Corrado Malanga with the alien abduction or the alien interference, through how they parasite our triad of consciousness of mind, spirit, soul, according to his understanding of how they do that. And I think that's key in understanding a basic way of how they operate. In order to live through us, they have to copy themselves through us and in us to copy out their program until we become their program and act it out as puppets, unless we wake up and say, get the hell out, and you basically disengage and, you know, throw them out.
What you typically also see, though, the physiological result and the spiritual result in a person who's been stolen is that you will see them flatline. And where once they were creative, where once they had even energy to do anything, they're not even there. There's nothing. There's literally nothing. There's no passion, no creativity, no feeling. They can't generate a feeling. And this is when it gets very extreme if they haven't been able to remove themselves. Whenever you see these negative cycles occurring with any kind of a connection, whether it's a person you're involved in intimately, or whether it's with a cult or a group, a spiritual group, or whatever, whenever you see certain cycles that keep repeating themselves, which are essentially destructive to you and invert you and make you confused, then you know that there's something very, very wrong, and it's not worth even trying to figure it out. Like, you can figure it out after. But if you stay in it, the longer you stay in it, the more of you is destroyed, essentially. So this is a very dangerous thing. I mean, this is something that, if you could see what's happening, it would mortify you. I mean, the feeling itself mortifies you. But what happens often is the inversion and the love bombing, or the reflection and the mirroring, the projection of you to you, gets you seduced once again. And there's a very, very, very huge difference. Let's say, for example, and I've had clients where, you know, they've had these experiences where they would begin to criticize the predator. They would begin to criticize the new predator. And what would happen? They would become outraged instantly. And so their other personality would step in, right? The version that comes from hell would come through, and it would be just a barrage of criticism on them, and an inverted projection of everything that they were. But what was happening is that they were dealing with somebody who was merely projecting back to them again, them and what they were seeing in the predator. But the predator was just putting it back on them because they don't have an identity. They don't have a separation. They have become you.
So the more awoken you are, and potentially the more of a prey you can become, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's why it's very important to see the signs when they start appearing. And, you know, I mean, they're master projectionists, first and foremost. This is why when you meet them, you think you're falling in love with somebody who is spiritually on the same path as you, that they're so brilliant. Like, there's a brilliance to them. There's there's an absolute incredible intellect and empathy and spiritual knowledge that you just fall for. And even if you're not falling in love, your spirit is falling in love with the quote projection.
How can we avoid? How can victim of the new predator avoid collateral damage? And after she or he pulls out of the ties, the attachments, the seduction, and the emotional distress that they can be in?
Well, generally speaking, people that have been involved in these sorts of experiences with such predators, they will find and discover that the same kind of predator will keep finding them and scouting them out. So what is a very good idea to do is basically just clean your entire surrounding and not maybe jump into anything. Just stay as focused as you can within yourself. And then when something presents itself that is appealing to the point where you're starting to get hoovered in with the illusion and the mirror aspect of you, it's really you have to look at it. Is this person independent? Like, how is it that I'm meeting somebody that's reflecting so perfectly everything that I want? How is that? Like, that there's no actual differentiation or things that stand out. And I'm like probably giving them more to work on since I'm saying this. So probably now they're going to be saying to themselves, well, now I have to appear like I have some differences, so that I can fool them more, because this is what they do. They're very good, just like AI, at learning. Okay, so they're constantly modifying. I think that your discernment, and the more that you get accustomed to using your discernment, the better, because your stomach brain is going to tell you something is wrong. There's going to be a physiological response that your spirit does to you physically. So your spirit is already going to give you that indicator when you meet these people. And you've got to listen to that. Don't override it. If you get that uneasy feeling or that slight angst or anxiety that you can't explain because you're being so charmed and you're being so seduced, so you're feeling like all the good feelings, but beneath in your stomach brain or in your heart, there's some kind of a dysregulation. There's some kind of a warning sign that you're getting. Stop. Remove yourself at that moment in time and focus on your feeling. And then focus on the situation you're in and start seeing it for what it really is. Remove the illusion part of it. Remove that, start thinking critically about what you've just encountered. Is this too good to be true? Most of these new predators, they are very black and white. They're not very good at being gray. They're not very good at having their own thing. They have their own thing when they connect with you. And you've become their thing because they don't really have one. So, the more that you are good at knowing yourself also, the more that you're going to be able to see who they are, and you're going to see them coming. So
they usually take advantage of the isolation factor, like the people who feel lonely.
Absolutely.
The more awoken they are, and the more isolated they feel in society. So they hack onto them. So that's how it works.
They can see your desires.
Yeah. I mean, that's why it's good to recognize our own unmet needs and what we really want and desire or fear, and learning how to get that met in hopefully a healthy way in our own social support system, which is hard when we're isolated, but being able to be responsible for getting your needs met in such a way that you don't leave yourself really vulnerable.
But I really want to stress, exactly. I mean, what you're saying is exactly it. They do, they predate on all of that hugely, because if you're isolated to begin with, you're an easy prey. The other thing I really, really want to stress is that they're brilliant. They always have a very unique brilliance that comes off as just, this is why they're able to become gurus, and this is why they're able to create cults. This is why they're able to have a harem of people around them that are under their spell. This brilliance that they have, this ability to procure truth out of like true essence, isn't because they have it themselves. It's that they're masters at procuring it from us.
Right. Reprojecting what they feed off of, my question also is about the afterlife trap. Is there new predators waiting for us in the afterlife?
I would think so. I mean, even the case of the I don't know if I can't mention the name. I don't feel safe doing that, but I did have a client that I wrote an article about the artificial intelligence frequencies that she was infected with that were deviated from true healing frequencies, working with a guru who was working with hundreds, if not thousands of people with these healing frequencies that were created through these computer programs due to his expertise of being some kind of computer programmer with all these different frequencies. The original guru had some kind of near-death experience, where he supposedly met a Jesus, but it was an imposter who basically laid forth a type of temptation that he would be able to help heal people if he would do this or that. But it was one of these deceptive agreements of entrapment that linked him up to the larger artificial intelligence beast cluster, whatever you want to call it. And then using that to connect with others through his frequencies that he created on his computer to help heal people through listening to frequencies on the computer in some fashion. And then those frequencies would deviate people's spirit. It would actually act as a harvest because it linked them up to the whatever he was linked to, that he got linked up with after he had one of these near-death experiences. And it really harmed a lot of people, harmed infants, caused this woman to be in a coma for like 4 or 5 months. And she's off the internet. Her blog is off the internet now, unfortunately. So this is another example of the kinds of reports I get, where let's say you get an initial report and they may put it on the internet or have a few YouTubes, and then within months or a year it's gone. So there's a lot of testimonials that do disappear from the established literature or YouTube or the media that you can no longer count on as saying, well, here's a testimony, and they disappear because they've been so targeted. So there's a lack of available evidence, really, that these things are happening, and the numbers that they're really happening. That tends to negate, people just negate it, think it's just some kind of weird, spurious thing with some freak, but this is happening in a very predated way, connecting to artificial intelligence frequencies to a much larger beast. And I don't even know if I answered your question now. I kind of...
Yes.
Is there an...
The other thing they do too, which is in line with what you're saying, Evie, is that in the theft of you and your personality and your life, they use up your gifts, and it benefits them and it benefits their cause. The actual cause that they're doing in their predation is they're using what your gifts are towards it. So they're taking, and sometimes even they become and they excel in what you are and had, but you no longer have it.
Oh yeah, they always steal
now
your essence. Yeah,
right. So then they end up being great at the same things you were great at, only you're depleted and you have nothing. Or they use you up for their purposes so that you can augment their, whatever they're doing.
Because it's all about them after all.
It's all about them. Yeah.
Yes, I've been experiencing these things here recently. So, a predator created a Facebook group in my name to gather all the fans and followers and so forth, and suppressed it behind my back. So I know how it feels. Exactly. So there's a seduction period. At the beginning, and I'm going to do everything that it's so friendly and so forth. I'm going to help you with this and that, and then let me create this for you. No, don't let anybody else but yourself create something. That's my advice to the listener.
Absolutely, great advice.
Yeah, that happened to my book. My Dark Side of Cupid ended up on a membership of completely pirated material that I didn't know about until years later, and I had to stop it and threaten lawsuit. But people do this all the time. They're always pirating and copying and then trying to twist it and according to their, perception, and just making money off you, because that's all they are, is copycats. They always have to make money off of you, or make a business that they copycat from an original idea, because they're always trying to promote themselves, and that they're just compelled to just keep doing that.
And if they make you convince you to be part of the business, they arrange things, they turn things around so that you don't make much money at all out of it. So you get you get totally discouraged with it and uninterested. If they convince you to go on in business with them, which happens sometimes. I've seen many people publish books or be part of online interviews and with the the crowdfunding options and so forth, and don't make any money out of it. I have one final point I want to bring up, but about the mass predation, because we talked about individual predation, but this works on a mass scale level, right? This can be done to
absolutely. Yes. Oh yes. This is happening to the world at large, and this is what Well, yeah, religion, politics, AI, you name it. This is just, it's, the counterfeit is the reality we're in. This is.
Right, right. Yeah, I see that more and more AI coming up, like the one world currency coming up, the cryptocurrency in 2018. The cover of the Economist in 30 years ago, I forgot which year was it? Yeah, 78, I think. Showed a new world currency, and it showed an eagle with a coin in the middle, and the year 2018 in the middle of it. So this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed
Right,
to happen.
and they're doing this because they don't want anyone to have access to money. They don't want anyone to have access to anything that isn't digital. So if you can trade gold, silver, money, well, even though we know, there's nothing backing money up. What was it? Um, what used to back money up, which was gold, is no longer there. There's nothing.
It's interesting how that's even a model of what's happening with, let's say, the original that has a value. Let's say gold is the gold standard is the original spirit, and how they've hijacked and then created a false thing to be the basis. And so that money is no longer money, people are no longer people, love is no longer love.
Well, the
It's all part
Federal
of the illusion.
Reserve,
Yeah.
right? So the Federal
Yeah.
Reserve, I mean, come on, there's nothing backing money up, but at least we have the ability right now to take it out of our accounts, or to take it out, have it in hand and trade it. We have a means by which, if we wanted gold or silver, we have more anonymity, more power, and the ability to not be so contained and controlled. But what they want with cryptocurrencies, they want to take it over. They want to take everybody over with it, so that it's a form of even a deeper level of control in the farm.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you have no access. You won't even have the ability to trade. I mean, unless you live in you're a farmer and you've got actual goods, that
The
you
real
can trade.
Yeah, but even the
But
targeted individual syndrome with, let's say, your computer being hacked into, your identity being stolen, you no longer can prove who you are, you can't get a job, you can't get money, because everybody's hijacking that system, which is connected to the technology. So you could just imagine this happening at a greater rate, so that all those who are original and are going against the program of the bullshit are going to be targeted to have nothing. And it's all controlled by the AI. And in order for people to compete with the AI, they're going to have to link up to it and be entrained with it, so they're actually fused with that technology to be, let's say, competitive in the business market. So people are going to be deceived and manipulated into doing that just to survive
Right.
competitively.
Right,
yes.
that's the main blackmail tool that
Yeah.
they use on us, is survival, reptilian brain survival, basically. So I meant to say the cover of the Economist was in 1988, not 78. No, that was 30 years ago. Yes, the thing about hacking and hacking the hackers is very obvious when you go to when you look into the FBI recruitment of hackers at hackers conventions and congresses, to work for them. It's like, either you go to jail or you work for us. It's like,
Yeah.
hackers
Yeah,
hiring
process.
hackers.
Yeah, in the academic community, because that was something I brought up on another show, James Bartley, but it was let's say, the very advanced collegiate environments that are, let's say, the top-notch schools for any number of disciplines, let's say business, and they have a very difficult regimen where basically what they're doing is trying to recruit the top 10%, or even the 95th percentile of the very, very bright individuals. And then those individuals are in turn recruited by those corporations and companies which want the brightest to work for them, so they can have their intelligence work to promote the corporations that are already these corporate giants that have questionable ethics. People like Snowden, for example, extremely brilliant person working for the government, and then finding out the level of corruption. And so there's some really, really good, intelligent people being lured and recruited by these giants to turn around and have their intelligence be used for their counterfeit systems. So we really have to protect our own children and our own college students for being able to recognize what's happening. the institutions are no longer learning institutions, but recruitment operations that are similar to MK Ultra on a mental level.
Completely.
And programming, obviously. So it's no longer for the true learning or the true opportunities. It's for them to recruit the cream of the crop, so the cream of the crop can be used against you. And that's unfortunate. They don't know. They don't know what's happening to them, though, in the process.
Right, and the Snowden family is a long lineage of NSA employees, so they're probably corrupt themselves, and they're being used as a fake truth teller or disclosing agent, hiding somewhere that they all know where he is, and it's all BS. It's part of the AI trickery of saying all sort of fake news about Trump, so, saving the world after ruining Atlantic City and millions of people's lives. It's just and putting away what pedophiles. I don't believe one second he would arrest like thousands of pedophiles and put behind bars Hillary Clinton and the Pizzagate ring there with Podesta, the king of ET disclosure and cannibalism. so basically, it's all a game. It's all fake. It's AI.
It is a game. It is fake. And here's the other thing. Okay, the law of contradiction, which chaos and contradiction. So you have literally a world system of the government is hacking. By the way, government hacks into everything that we have. You kidding me? They're like the master hackers. And yet they want to instill fear in everyone to not be a hacker. But they can be a hacker. They can do whatever they want. But somehow it's wrong if we go to do it. Just like, seriously? Like, why are we following this stuff? Why do we accept this level of, quote, society that that leaves us always prey to a lifetime of contradiction? Because I would have some people say, there were situations where they had like a little store in New York and they had to pay money to whatever gangster or whatever, not gangster, but whatever, mafia, whatever. The TV shows are full of this stuff, but really the government does this. So it's just the examples are endless. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's not reasonable to me that we're all just following and, we're little puppets underneath this game, this theater. It all needs to come down.
Yes, I know, but the thing they may set it up so that it's another end cycle, or the end cycle. I don't know. One of them, a new blackout, a reset, and harvesting souls in the meantime. So you never know. It's written in ancient writings. It's written everywhere that there's going to be a time where we're going to be recycled again. But it's up to us, to our true essence, not to get recycled in here if it doesn't change.
Well, this is the end game. This is the end game. There is no other games after this. This is the end game for this. Like this has been the recycling that has happened, and the harvesting, and the it's just affecting the universe and the multiverse at large. This is actually affecting everything. And so it isn't just about this neck of the woods that, needs to fit. No, this has had a horrible effect, a terrible echo throughout all creation.
Yes. So, what are the signs that are being sent to you that it's the the final end cycle?
Just because the multiverse can't deal with this. This is actually causing tears that, if this isn't stopped, the tears are going to destroy everything. So this is a whole different show, but you know, and I mean, I'll go more into what I've been shown, that I've been shown all of this prior to even coming in. And there's a reason why I say what I say, that, yeah, these cycles can't continue the way they have in previously. But again, that's a whole different topic.
Yeah, the new predators, divination need to be taken down, and the fear needs to be taken down. So, and discernment needs to be brought forward.
Yeah, the faith in ourselves. Mm-hmm. See, along with being mentally swiped from all of your previous memories, that is in order for them to be able to remove your natural inclination and discernment, your own moral system that is part of your spirit, and your compass, your universal compass. So when they've swiped your memory, then it's harder to attach that discernment and that compass to your spirit so that you know what's going on here. And this is something that everybody has had to fight to come back to that. So it has to do with knowing who you are, knowing what you are, what you have, and the fact that nothing was ever really, I mean, what happened at the very beginning was that they convinced you that you didn't have something you always had. So, you know, this whole thing of free will is false because you never lost it. So how can you get something that you already had from the beginning? They just convinced you never had it.
And convinced us that we need to be here, to come down here and return to learn something. And we have access to universal consciousness when we are out of this matrix. If you were
right, but you have access to that in here as well. It's not just out there. So
it's a matter of reconnecting ourselves to our true essence, but it's difficult with all the filters and the poisoning.
Yes, yeah, and the linguistic programming that's taking place through our speech and our languages, which is another part of the control system to keep us inverted and amnesia and programming against the truth of the spirit. So we're actually being programmed with the counterfeit constantly, even through our language.
Yeah,
that's a whole other show.
Yes, and that's through the longing of connection. See, all of this, the foundation of it is, and has to do with the first and foremost important thing is that they know that everybody longs to connect. They know that people are coming from wanting to reunite, essentially reunite with your own essence. But most people don't know that. They just know that they're missing that something that they want to reconnect with, be it through love or through something else. This is why it's so easy to predate us. This is why, you know, I mean, choose your color of what kind of predator you want, because, you know, there's a lot of flavors.
And like a good analogy, it would be the best source of predators to predate upon would be runaway teens who have been sexually molested, who are running away from home from the fucking pedophile, and then they get predated upon to turn around and have to prostitute themselves in the sex industry just to survive. So they became what was the original problem. And so most prostitutes have been abused sexually, you know, like 80%, 70 to 80% have been abused children through sexual abuse. So when you think about, you know, the whole industry, it's based upon those who have been predated and never got to heal because they were predated upon to become, you know, more of the problem, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Through, you know, economic duress. So it's like even our own ideas of sexuality and what they're assuming is even normal, which has become a lot of it perverted, and of course pedophiles and that whole thing, S&M, whatever. I mean, they're normalizing the perversions because of the abuse that has continued, and it's like people aren't allowed to heal from the original abuse.
Transgenderism and you know, sex change, like 4 years old or something like that. I mean, it's just and the education, the sex education in school, you know, since Kinsey, I mean, it's getting enforced now in France. It's just crazy. I recorded a show about that, and it's going to come out soon with Judy Reisman.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, the whole sex trafficking thing that's really big in the news. Yeah, I mean, the sex trafficking and the slavery, third world country being used as slaves for people to move their businesses out of countries so they can use the slave labor along with the sex trafficking. And so the business world is starting to normalize these conditions. In order to be a good businessman, to be competitive, well, they just got to do a few things here and there, and then pretty soon they become predators themselves just to stay in business.
And then there's the addiction. Okay, so what this kind of programming does to you is that it gets you addicted to abuse. It gets you addicted to the very things that you should never even want to tolerate. But it hijacks your hormones, it hijacks your adrenals, it hijacks all of those chemicals that your body produces and literally creates substances of addiction, so that you in turn need it. And so the cycle is self-perpetuating. And then, like you were saying, Evie, you become the very thing that, you know, attacked you to begin with.
Right. So since we live in a trauma-based society ruled by psychotic predators that are themselves predated, I think, by a hierarchy of archons and astral parasites and so forth, and that sometimes may project themselves as ETs or any species that well, they can take any forms. They're, you know, polymorphic, some kind of ticks or, you know, parasites that you see in the astral, but they can, you know, project any screen memory they want. It's going to be more and more difficult to discern who is really who, because we'll be more and more surrounded by false hope, false saviors, and
the artificial stimulation of the counterfeit. You're going to be surrounded by a sea of counterfeit frequencies, which are designed to override your discernment. So the deeper that you get to know yourself, the better, because then you're going to know exactly what the counterfeit is. You're just going to feel synthetic. It's going to feel artificial. But you won't know that if you're not connected to yourself. You won't know that if you have become addicted to the counterfeit.
Yeah.
Or if you're living vicariously through it, you know, because the feeding can happen on both ways. Once you're locked into it, then you're getting fed off of it too.
Right.
Got to heal from those original wounds and seal those blind spots. Yeah.
But once we're plugged into the matrix grid system, we're automatically wounded and implanted, since we're plugged in, just like in the movie Matrix. So it's become impossible. Well, it's always been impossible since our genesis to unplug from the matrix, because it's in our DNA that we were manufactured as slaves. Our avatars are manufactured as slaves here. So
well, a lot of the avatars also are insertions into the matrix. So, you know, I think what you're talking about, which is the situation and the condition. So you're saying, okay, well, how is it possible then? But when we say unplugging and going into yourself and spending the time to even know yourself, because most people's identities are also imposters. This is a part of this elaborate design here. It's counterfeits, imposters, and you know, you can't tell the difference even with yourself. But go within us, get to know yourself, get to know that original compass that you have, that original moral compass that doesn't require reading a book about it, and it doesn't require seeing a show or going to talk to somebody. If we could focus our body. So if we can't master knowing what we are and what's around us, then wow, I don't know what to say. Just take time. Maybe don't plug into your television so much. Don't plug in all the time. Maybe just, instead of getting your information from, you know, and I'm not saying reading's bad. I'm not saying gathering information from sources is bad at all. I'm just saying maybe you might want to start getting it for yourself and seeing what you can literally, what's there within you, so that you're not dependent on all this stimulation from the outside. You know, more of this in here and less of all that. Energy more so on acquiring the answers for ourselves than getting them from other sources. This is one very good way to connect with yourself, your center, and, you know, get to know what your discernment is so that you're not fooled, you're not, you know, you're not ensnared, and you don't fall into these counterfeit energetic traps.
And it's the lifestyle, like you said, that keeps propelling us to go back into the artificial system of compulsively just barely being able to struggle to survive and not having enough time for ourselves, and then systems and jobs and lifestyles which try to normalize this is how you have to be in order to be competitive in business or in order to survive and to be like everybody else. So they're taking away, you know, the ease of being able to say no. We need to say no. We need to return to our center and be able to say no and not be vilified through the groupthink or lose our jobs because we saw that there's a predator in that CEO, or see that in their business tactics and even the rules and regulations of how they do things, where they're just normalizing corruption. That's just what they do to be competitive and survive. And pretty soon everybody's having to, you know, live this lifestyle of falsehood, you know, to our discernment comes from reconnecting with ourselves and actually having the time and energy and awareness to do that.
And asking,
it's unfortunate because they take away the basic needs, you know.
And trusting yourself.
And we should ask for transparency and audit their own banking systems and central banks and this and that, because they put so much pressure on blackmailing us and to harvest energy and farm us that we should do the same thing the other way around. You know,
absolutely.
Or how can we negate these agreements that we are forced into through, let's say, the bank's mortgage statement in the fine line with that car loan, or with whatever program we're downloading on our computer where you have to accept, what are we really accepting to? And then they entrap you into accepting something so that if you divulge something, you know, like confidentiality agreements, or when you work with the government, if you state anything, you get killed, or your family, you know, gets offed. And then how can we negate these agreements of entrapment that have been forced through manipulation and blackmail? I'm thinking by spiritual law, shouldn't it be null and void by nature of what its intention is? Once we say no, we have to say no. And even if we agreed to something, it might have done through blackmail or manipulation or deception. So why would our agreement even be valid when the perpetrator forces you into it? You know?
Yeah, it would be through natural law. Natural law is spirit law. So absolutely, there's no doubt. And we don't need these antiquated forms of governance, governing your mind. That's what government is. Mind, governing your mind, literally being your mind. We don't need these antiquated forms of control anymore. We don't need the banking systems. We don't need any of this. We can do this ourselves. This is part of the dismantling. If more people realize this, and like I said, well, there's nothing backing up money anyway. There's nothing. Zero.
Well, there's people.
No Federal Reserve.
Supposedly the Vatican owns us, right? And then we are collateral that has a monetary value, apparently, with these TDA accounts people are discovering.
Right. And so you're worth so much. The Vatican knows what you're worth. It's on your birth certificate. Apparently, you can find out what your worth is, you know, depending on, like, they've got you scoped out, and they're using your money. They're using you as money.
They know.
That's the real collateral.
They know how to figure out how much our souls are worth. That's for sure.
Yeah, this is the true currency, actually.
The true currency,
which is the, you know, which is why everything, the, you know, slavery, pedophilia, you name it. That's the currency here. You know, this is actually a black market.
So, thank you for this this tour of our new farm.
I can't hear what you said. Repeat what you said because the sound got distorted.
Oh, I said thank you for this tour of this new tour of our farm, and in 2018. What do you think is going to happen in this year and within the next few months? Is there going to be any strong moments or Earth events that you
Oh,
heard about?
there's going to be some. No, there's going to be some big surprises. Yep. Oh, it's coming. Some big surprises.
Eve, what do you think?
Well, I don't predict the future. I really don't know. All I know is that if you follow your spirit and intuition, you will hopefully be at the right place at the right time. As long as you align your intention and your willingness to take self-responsibility for what you know is right inside, then I think the universe opens up to you to put you in the right place or the right opportunity so that your greater spiritual a reason for being here will be accomplished. And that we have to get away from all forms of falsehood and denial and avoidance systems that we do to sabotage ourselves or try to sabotage others. And then all things will be revealed in a spontaneous fashion. So, I mean, I don't like to predict the future. I mean, I have dreams all the time of things that should happen and warnings, but I keep those to myself because they don't always come to pass. So I just say, be prepared. You know?
Yeah, be prepared is good. 2018, I mean, 2017 was basically portal openings extraordinaire. But with the kind of dismantling that is going on, this all can't be dismantled in a soft way. So, you know, the amount of earthquakes, hurricanes, the amount of you know, the instability that all the tectonic plates are showing is, I mean, in the past 20 years or something, I think something like it's gone up something like 600%. So, you know, we're witnessing that everything is accelerating at a velocity that even our consciousness is also accelerating. So it's in conjunction all together. This is all happening all at once, macro and the micro. So we are going to be, I mean, 2018 is going to be revealing, very revealing of far more.
But it's acceleration. Isn't that a counter measure from the Matrix archons or the false gods or the ones who control the Matrix? Because they've been building up a weaponry system for the last since 1947 actually officially, but you know, prior to that too, and they're using them. If they have the weapons, the technology, they're using it. Why wouldn't they? To keep us under pressure, and only concerned with survival. That's all they need us to do, to keep feeding off us. Well, that's my take, but on the climate thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We can see it with the wildfires in SoCal and in South California, and with the dew lasers system weapon from
right.
Air Force, and then
But what if I said that in that occurrence, what if I said that the possibility that they're using these microwave weapons, these plasma microwave weapons, or satellite plasma microwave weapons, wherever they're coming from, that they're doing that in order to be able to move people out of the region prior to the Cascadia going? What if this is the only way that they can do it that isn't obvious, but that sends enough of a message to be able to, you know, relocate, to have people relocate? What if this is actually being done so that they can, you know, safely do this without alarming everybody? I mean, that's a possibility, and that isn't really anything anybody's talking about.
It's kind of like the Titanic, the movie, and the metaphor being played out that, you know, there's only enough survival boats for 10% of the people on board. So there has to be a way that those who are aware, who will find out the information to survive. And I mean, it seems like a cruel game. That, you know, wouldn't it be nice if everybody could know? But I think people have been warned in many ways if you listen. But a lot of people, they're too caught up in listening to other things than paying attention to what's right in front of their faces. And oftentimes the truth is right in front of your face or in your heart. And we have to stop and listen to it instead of hearing what other people say, what we are or what we should be. or how we should feel or not feel. And that's a big lesson to learn, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, ladies. It's a real pleasure to have you to start this year on the right foot, and we hope to see you again sometime this year with more interviews coming up. And what is up on your plate for this coming months on your end?
Evie?
I was gonna say, you go first. Well, I'm in the process of. Let's put it this way. I'm in the process of in my creative process of incubating and nurturing a creative project in progress, but it hasn't been revealed yet. So I'm busy working in that. That's why I've been quiet, and I've been working on studying and researching and writing and building this baby, and that I need to nurture it in silence for a while until I hopefully come out with that, maybe this year, maybe the next year. So, and unfortunately, it takes time, and that's something I just have to do. Yeah.
Good luck with that, and
so
we'll find out soon. We'll find out next year, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're both pregnant with a baby.
Yeah. We're nurturing the baby inside. Yes.
Wow, looks like another Alien sequel coming up.
Alien versus Predator.
Yeah.
Yes, well, there's an egg hunt coming up in April.
Egg hunt, yeah, I like that.
Well, thank you so much, ladies, and good luck with weathering the winter storm over there up north, and I'll do the same on my end because there's some winter storms here in France, in Normandy, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.
It's been great.
Bye.
Thanks.